Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we've got Levi, Lyon of Lion's Pride, Lion Pride Music, Lion Pride Tours. You've got some media as well, Lion Pride Media, all about tourism, music, cannabis, huge advocate, huge player in the space. So I appreciate you being on the podcast. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about. Well, first off, I want to briefly explain to people who don't know about Washington State's marijuana lounge. It's probably one of the strictest laws, maybe in the world, as it pertains to cannabis cafes, marijuana lounges. There's a felony to maintain and operate. Your workaround is to use your buses. You go around on tours. You're on private property, and you allow people to consume in a safe environment. And yet the regulatory agency has overstepped their boundaries, if you will. I'll let you get into that. And so your pivot to stay relevant has been impacted as of recently. So tell me a little bit about yourself, about Lion Pride Media, and what happened.
So Levi, Lion Pride Media, Lion Pride Music. I've been entertainment director with Seattle Hemp Fest now. It's been my 16th year. I'll be meeting up with KISW, familiar with KSW, and Steve Miggs on the Miggs Cast here this next Tuesday with Vivian McPeak. We're going to be plugging our entertainment and starting to get everything locked and loaded for the festival season in August 14th, 15th, and 16th in Seattle this year. Very passionate about music, but there's a beautiful connection, a beautiful marriage between marijuana and music. And so also a crossover passion. And we've been traveling across the country for over 10 years with our fleet of buses. I live in these buses. We're on the road constantly. We're trying to do education, advocacy for cannabis legalization. And so here in November, we were doing a disc golf event. We built a disc golf for the community down in Centralia, Washington, right next to a really awesome pot shop called Uncle Ando's World of Weed. They have some private property adjacent. I talked the owners into letting us build a private golf course just to engage in some fun activities, some fun, safe activities. And then, of course, I travel and I live on these buses. And so, I meet a lot of friends along the way. And I invite them to come in and do like a dab and discussion, we call it. And it's just a great way to get grounded and talk about new policies and talk about how we're going to fix the world in a better way and be, the positive, keep the positive train rolling.
So you're going around, you have tours. So let's dive into the issue, right, with marijuana lounges and your business specifically. The Liquor and Cannabis Board is a regulator, and they have the authority to deal with producers and processors and retailers. And yet you were in a situation where you were at a rec shop, you were allowing people to consume on your bus, and there were maybe 4 jurisdictions, including the Liquor and Cannabis Board, who has no authority, and yet your buses got confiscated. Is that right?
Yeah, we had an undercover LCB. And this is kind of the way that we have to do it, because it is a very strict policy here in Washington, and I've read the laws forward and backwards. And so we can't open our vehicles to the public, right? I really got to get to know somebody before I give them access into my private vehicle. Again, we live on these vehicles, and with my media background and working with the radio stations, it's like, for me, it's very important to get the education and awareness out, right? So I'm constantly talking to newfound friends about the policies, and we're trying to fix the laws. And so I don't just invite anybody on, but when I've got a connection with somebody, and somebody I think that's intelligent enough to pick up a good conversation, we do have it's a fun name. It's called Dab and Discuss, right? Where you can come in and let's talk about fixing the laws and doing some positive things for the community. And so on November 23rd, we were approached. They'd been doing an undercover sting on us for a couple of months, and a couple of the guys I recognized from being on our buses in the past, and he brought a new friend in, which was also an undercover LCB, and they asked my girlfriend for a dab. They reached out and said, "Hey, I'd like to get in on the fun." And then they whipped out their badges and said, "You guys are under arrest for running a cannabis club." We never charge anything to get in, and it's not open to the public. We were parked on a private property adjacent to the cannabis store, so we're not on the retail store property. It's just some flat land. You can't see in the buses. They're registered as RV motorhomes because, again, we live in them. And of course, there's, they did try to get a warrant to get on our vehicle, unsigned warrant. I think that they did it illegally. And so we've got a big court date coming up March 13th, and you can go to lionpridemedia.com to kind of read the full story. And then, of course, we're going to be letting everybody know to come out and support that event. But it was just a really unfortunate way that they approached us. And they're trying to bring down a good time and bring down really our constitutional rights to assemble and to get together and discuss what we should be allowed to do.
Now, it's a little bit different with commercial property. So you can't have a private club like the Eagles or, one of these private clubs that's in a commercial building. If you did it in a residential house, it should be the same as what you're talking about, private land, a private RV, and nobody can really interfere with that. And yet with that felony, to maintain and operate a marijuana lounge is pretty serious. So without getting into the weeds, I am curious, do you think that if they brought their own dabs and did a dab, would it still be the same? Did you get your buses confiscated because you gave them a dab or just provided the service?
I guess that's something that we're going to have to go through in court and really pick it apart. I definitely feel that the you mentioned the commercial property. It's like I think that law. In fact, there is some old case law from the 1950s from when prohibition moved over. 20 years into the release of prohibition in the 1950s, there were some bottle clubs, and the state tried to they used some verbiage in the RCW called bottle clubbing, and there were I think three. There's three. It's like the athletic club and the union club and maybe another one like the Eagles club. They did a big lawsuit against the state, and the state actually found that it was unconstitutional to have that RCW code. Well, now here we are, 70 years later, the state put the exact same verbiage into our new cannabis law, right? So they've outlined, it's almost word for word, something that the state's already deemed unconstitutional. They put the same verbiage in the RCW again and replaced bottle club with marijuana. And so that really needs to get stricken, and we need to discuss the legalities of that and how the state somehow missed that one.
That's great news. That you've been on the committee that we started a year ago next month to overturn this felony and implement rules to allow for a safe consumption spot in the state of Washington. And so it's not just about tourism, right? It's not just about a spot where you can go and get high. This is a place where people who live in an apartment, whose landlords won't let them smoke, who live in a federally subsidized facility, who they don't want to take Marinol or Epidiolex or any of that synthetic garbage. They want the real thing. And so you're actually providing a real service in one of the most difficult environments out there. So you already got a couple of buses confiscated. And so are you going to go on a tour along with this, the idea of trying to drum up some money and support for this effort?
Yeah, we are. We got a big 4/20/20 tour coming up with the artist Timmy. I know we're going to be hitting Boise M Fest. We're going to be doing this a Northwest educational tour. We do have a fundraiser that's going in, and the fundraiser is at lionpridemedia.com. Again, it tells us the whole background story and everything that's happened to us now, and then of course where we're headed with things in the future and how we're going to resolve some of these conflicts with the state. And yeah, we're going to be just doing what we do, public awareness, right, and education, and we're going to try to keep our positive, keep the smiler moving, and just try to make some friends along the way, and try to do things the right way. I can't believe the state, came in. We had our 8-year-old daughter at the event, right? We had a little chocolate stand set up. She always loves playing frisbee golf, and she had her hot chocolate stand set up. And so for the LCB and the state to come in and bust 30 people donating food and clothing for the food drive, and for the state to come in and do that and set that kind of an example, like, hey, we're still here trying to bust people. And the state should be in realization now that there's a great positive alternative. We're generating close to $1 billion in tax revenue, there's a right way to do it, and I think the days of busting people are over. I thought that they were, and we've got a new money wheel that's in motion. Why can't we get some licensing and get some kind of a banquet license or banquet permit for people to be able to consume on commercial properties? But again, we're just going to go out and do things the old-fashioned way. We got this big tour coming up in April, and we're just going to, meet people, be friendly, shake hands, and meet and mingle, make friends, and just kind of do things on a more grassroots basis.
When we started this subcommittee to overturn that felony, we really wanted to keep it streamlined. But with HempFest really needing a temporary event license and people like yourself needing tourism licenses, it kind of only made sense to add that as of recently. So we did add that to the bill that we've been working on for the last year, and hopefully that'll make some progress. I'd like to talk to you offline a little bit about that RCW code from the 50s, because I think if we attach that as not an addendum, but just a note, and let them know, pass this or else, right? If there's already case law about it being unconstitutional, the LCB cannot afford a lawsuit, which I'm willing to bring if they don't make this reverse the felony and implement our bill. Which I think is more than reasonable, considering that they want to have a safe injection site and charge Seattle taxpayers $100,000 a month to allow for heroin injection, when a facility like a cannabis cafe could help wean people off of heroin. Doesn't make any sense. We're generating revenue as a business instead of charging people money. So hopefully businesses like yours can be a going concern. You can get your vehicles out, remain in business, generate revenue, get smiles on those people's faces, and get them to try something that they haven't. CBD or whatever products you can offer in addition to dabs is going to help. A lot of people don't want to go into a store, so you're going to be going to them, like to a place like a Frisbee golf place. I think that's a phenomenal tourism, and Seattle needs tourism, right? Everyone's going to Vancouver to film, and they're skipping us entirely. We don't have cruise ships coming in the winter because it's raining. So, let's do a dab.
And do it safely, right? And of course, be educated. That's one of the things that I think the state's really lacked on also, is that there's zero education. They've done a nano job at education. And speaking of the nanograms, there's so much awareness that needs to be created about the policy. And of course, if you smoke and or dry, dab, and then try to drive, how long are you supposed to wait? I was down at the doing the lobby day down at the state, and I got a chance to ask some of the representatives, if I smoke a joint, how long am I supposed to wait? They got embarrassed. They didn't know the answer to that. And so we've had 5 years to do general education about just creating some standards and creating some policy or creating some awareness about how long people should wait. And we don't know. And then there's this 5 nanograms rule. I'm surprised there's not a class action against the state for all the people that have gotten pot DUIs. There's a lot of them. I've got quite a few friends. And so that's one of the things that we've done with buses also, right? We've used the buses as mobile billboards to try to help create some awareness. We teamed up with the Druid app. The Druid app's a fun app you can download, and it runs you through like a couple-minute test to help you find out if you're in good standings and a good mindset to go out in public and or drive.
Yes, it's a great service that you're providing, so people don't have to consume and drive. It's interesting where all of the markets that have rolled out with regulation, we've seen a decrease in opioids, a decrease in alcohol consumption, and a decrease in impaired driving. But if you look at some of the biased reports, it's contradictory to that. It'll show an uptick in impaired driving. I don't know what the correlation is, if they've even been able to test that. But people are getting some DUIs. I think those will all get expunged, just like all the misdemeanors and everything else prior to regulation, for that simple fact that they aren't able to determine that 5 milligrams is impaired. It's not. It's crazy. So yeah, we need more buses like yours, man. We need you to keep fighting the fight. Definitely appreciate you being, on the committee to overturn this felony. Love the fact that you're out there driving around and spreading the word and trying to stay in business, even though they're stealing your assets.
Yep. March 13th, again, go to lionpridemedia.com to read the full story. And please make a donation. We've got lawyers to pay for. I'm definitely worried. I'm concerned. I'm scared for my family that we're just trying to do the best job we can to fight up for keep our fight for the right to party, as the Beastie Boys once said, and we definitely need some contributions coming in.
So one last time, if people want to donate for this cause, where can they go to donate some money?
LionPrideMedia.com. Lyon is Lyon, pridemedia.com.
And as usual, all that is going to be in the show notes. So with that, I want to thank my guest, Levi Lyon, Lyon Pride Media. Appreciate you being on the podcast.
Right on.
I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.